Press.
Okay. Welcome everyone to Fruit of the Orchard. We are going to do Parshat Masei, the last parsha of the book of Bamidbar. So when we finish reading it this Shabbat, everyone will stand and say Chazak, Chazak, v'nitchazek. Be strong, and be strengthened. So this parsha, the beginning, deals with the 42 journeys Am Yisrael went through during the 40 years in the desert. And the verse, first of all, anyone who wants to follow in Fruits of the Orchard, it's on page 461. The verse that we're going to be looking at is Numbers 33, verse 2. And it says like this, and Moses wrote their going forth according to their journeys at the command of God. And these were the journeys according to their going forth. And then the Torah goes through a list of 42 different journeys that brought us right before entering into Eretz Yisrael. And then we go to Parshat Devarim, Deuteronomy, and that whole book takes place in 37 days. So we're at the gateway of Eretz Yisrael here. And now the Torah is reviewing how we got there. The 42 journeys from when we left Egypt till we got to right across from Jericho, ready to come into the land. But when we look at this verse carefully, so we see that there's a mirror image here. There's an inverse wording. First, I'm going to say it again. And Moses wrote their going forth according to their journeys at the command of God. And these were their journeys according to their going forth. So you see that the first half of the sentence is reversed between journeys and going forth. So there's much talked about this. And one of them is the idea of Or Yeshar and Or Chozer, straight light and returning light. This idea of a mirror image, that God's light comes into the world, and then we'll call it, these are the cards we're dealt with, and returning light is what we do with it. And this also is the whole thing of Ratzo v'Shov, running and returning. So here in the first half of the sentence, we're going forth according to our journey. And the second half, we're on our journey according to going forth. So this mirror image of the language is telling us things very deep on a bigger level. So this is the story, because again, we're talking about the 42 journeys that Am Yisrael went through. So Chassidut teaches that there's a way to look at almost the entire Torah, from the time that we go down to Egypt till the time we come out, and the whole rest of the journeys as the journey of an individual soul. That when a soul comes down into a body, this is like going into Egypt. The word Egypt means a narrow place, a very narrow place. So in relationship to a soul that's coming from a heavenly abode, coming down into a very narrow, material, physical, challenging world, into a body. So this is the height of restriction, of being in Mitzrayim. And coming out of Egypt is the whole story of how the soul operates in this world. And then eventually returns to its heavenly abode. So we could see this in the journeys also. That's why the language is reversed. First, we come down into this world, and then eventually we return. Ratzo v'shov. So the rest of the class, we don't do this all of the time, but it's going to be very, very connected to numbers. It's interesting because this is the last parsha of the book of Bamidbar, but in English, Bamidbar is called the book of Numbers. And that's because the whole first parsha of Bamidbar is one of these censuses I was talking about in the last class on Parshat Matot, where there's many censuses in the Torah. And the idea is, so in English, they call it the book of Numbers, not necessarily based on the Hebrew word. Bamidbar means simply in the desert. So this verse that we're analyzing, that Moses wrote, they're going forth according to their journeys at the command of God. And these were the journeys according to their going forth, is the 2,336th verse in the Torah. So everyone's first question is, okay, now what do I do with that? Why do I have to know it's the 2,336th verse in the Torah? What is it teaching us? But we'll see, and there's many, many different commentaries that analyze verses in the Torah according to which position they hold in the Torah, and obviously deep revelations that come from that. So if you look at 2,336, it equals 32 times 73. 32 times 73 equals 2,336. What is 32? Well, there are many words that have the gematria of 32, but one of the primary words is lev, heart. Many words have the gematria of 73, but what is probably the most important one is chachma, wisdom. So in a beautiful metaphor allegory, we could say that this verse talking about the journeys and going forth and how they're recorded, and these are the 42 journeys. And the Baal Shem Tov had a very, very famous insight where in general, the Baal Shem said everything in the Torah is applicable to each and every person in every generation. And especially, let's say, of the 613 mitzvot, 2/3 of them are not applicable today. As crazy as that sounds, from the point of a Torah mandated mitzvah. Why? Because so many of the mitzvot depend on having a temple, depend on having acting Kohanim and Leviim, are dependent on having an acting Sanhedrin, are dependent on having a majority of Jews living in the land of Israel, is dependent on keeping the laws of the land. So today we keep around 1/3 of them. So the question is, so why do we have to know the other ones? So the Baal Shem Tov revealed that every mitzvah can be explained in a way that has personal relevance to each and every person in every generation. This is a general idea in Chassidut. And about this particular parsha, he says these 42 journeys that the Torah mentions by name it's not just something that happened to Am Yisrael in the desert. This symbolically is telling us about each and every person's journey in this world. And therefore, there are many, many commentaries on the different names of the different places. Many of the names are mentioned in the Torah throughout, but many of the names we've never heard before. And it's understood that we're talking about more than just physical places. We're talking about spiritual development, emotional development, psychological development, the journeys that we take through this world. Plenty of songs and poems have been written using this idea of our journey through the world. So going back, 32 times 73 is heart times wisdom. And therefore, we can interpret this idea that each and every one of us is going through a journey to the wisdom of the heart. That's the journey we're all on, to come to the wisdom of the heart. If you remember, in the cycle of Sfira Ta'omer, where we're counting 7 weeks, 49 days, and we're told that 49 equals Lev Tov, a good heart. So many commentaries say that is the point of Sfira Ta'omer. And that's connected to when Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai asked 5 of his top students, what's the best way to be in this? What's the best attitude to have, or the best worldview to have in relations to the world and to others? And so Rabbi Elazar ben Arach, his opinion was Lev Tov. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai picked his opinion. He said, because his opinion includes all the other opinions. So here, when we have this verse, which is really just talking about the 42 journeys, so we're all on a journey to learn, integrate the wisdom of the heart in who we are, in what we're doing in this world. It's a very, very beautiful, beautiful idea. But we can take it further, because the most primordial book of Kabbalah is the Sefer Yetzirah. And the Sefer Yetzirah begins with 32 wondrous pathways of wisdom. And then it goes on with names of God. God created the world. So here you see 32 is heart and 32 pathways of wisdom. And we're told that that's how God created the world. So we're created in the image of God. And so we could see that our journey in this world is to connect to the Creator, connect to being an image of God, to the actual purpose of creation. And we can identify that as learning the wisdom of the heart. That is the beginning of Sefer Yetzirah, with 32 wondrous pathways of wisdom. So that's an incredible connection that we have here. But we're going to go even a little bit deeper, and some of you were with me when we went through the whole book, 70 Faces. And one of the faces, one of the paradigms or methods that is used it's what's called the triangle of a number. So we'll take a small number. The triangle of 4 is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10. Now this is one of the most important, because God's essential name is 4 letters. And God is creating the world through the 10 sfirot. So the 4 letters of God's name, when the triangle of 4, which again means 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, equals 10. That's just an example. So let's look at the first verse of the Torah. Bereshit bara Elokim et hashmayim ve'et haaretz. Altogether, it's gematria 2,701. 2,701 equals the triangle of 73, wisdom, chachma. So here, when Sefer Yetzirah says with 32 wondrous pathways of wisdom, God created the world. So you look at the first verse, and the first verse equals the triangle of wisdom. That's what we say every day in our prayers, that kulam b'chachma asita. You made everything with wisdom. And the Aramaic translation, usually we call it the Targum, but the most famous one is Targum Onkelos. But there are other Targums also, other translations into Aramaic. And one is Targum Yonatan, and one is Targum Yerushalmi. The Targum Yerushalmi, the Onkelos and Yonatan, so they translate the word Bereshit to mean in the beginning. Very similar to how we do it in English. But the Targum Yerushalmi says b'chachma, with wisdom, God created the world. So here we have all these connections, but we want to bring it back to us personally, is that we're all on a journey, and we have to know what the purpose of the journey is. And really, it's a little bit poetic, but it's true nonetheless that each one of us is on a journey to get to the wisdom of the heart. As we said, that's what Rabbi Elazar ben Arach said, that's what it's all about, is lev tov. And as we said, that's equals 49. That's the purpose of the 49 days of counting the Omer. Another thing that we've discussed before is that the last letter in the Torah is a lamed, and the first letter in the Torah is a bet, spelling lev. In other words, the end is connected to the beginning, as it says in Sefer Yetzirah. Sofan na'utz b'techilatan b'sofan. The end is wedged in the beginning, and the beginning in the end. So here it's almost literal. The last letter is a lamed. The first letter is a bet, spelling lev. That is the essence of what we're trying to get to. In Yiddish, it's to be a mensch. To be a mensch, a good person, a good heart, a kind person, a helpful person. That's all what we're trying to get to. So here, if we go back to the verse, the 2,336th verse, that's written in a mirror image. So we see here, though, what that's indicating is that in a bigger picture, all of us are on a journey to try to connect on the inner level, our intellect to our emotions. It says in Chassidut that the greatest distance in the world is not between us and some galaxy 5,800 light years away. There's even a greater distance, and that's between the mind and the heart. This is brought down in Chassidut. That's the greatest distance in the world, is to bridge our intellect and our emotions. And so this journey that we're on, as indicated by this verse that's written in a inverse manner, is telling us that we have to connect intellect to the emotions. Just like the soul comes down into the world and then ascends again. This is what's called Yerida L'tzorach Aliyah, going down in order to go up. And this is connected to Ratzo V'Shov, running and returning. And that's our journeys in this world, is all running and returning, running and returning. So the last point we want to make now is a very, very beautiful connection with Avram Avinu. The first time that God speaks to Avram explicitly in the Torah, he tells him, Lech lecha me'artzecha, go out of your land, leave your birthplace and your father's house, and go to the land that I will show you. So the very, very first command to the first Jew is Lech lecha. And we've learned this many times. Lech lecha is actually the same letters. And Lech lecha means go to yourself. So Avram is being taught, being commanded that there's two journeys that he has to go on. One is an outer journey to literally leave where he was and go to Israel. But the other one is an inner journey. And of course, Chassidut teaches us all the figures in the Torah are archetypal. And as the Baal Shem Tov said, it all applies to each and every one of us. So this command of Lech lecha is directed to every single one of us, that we have two journeys. And that's why this verse is written as it says, and Moshe wrote, they're going forth according to their journeys at the command of God, and these were their journeys according to their going forth. We have a Lech lecha energy here. When Avram comes into the land, so it says, V'yisa Avram haloch b'nesoa hanegba. And Avram traveled and journeyed towards the south. So I learned this from Rav Ginsburg. The south, in general, we always face the east in conceptual form. So that means that the sphere of chesed is always on our right side, and Gevurah is on our left side, and Tiferet is to the east in front of us. So our right, when we face the east, right is to the south. So Rav Ginsburg says, when it says, and Avram traveled and journeyed towards the south, means that Avram was always journeying towards chesed. That was his main attribute. And so going to the south represents going towards chesed. The inner dimension of chesed, according to the Sfirot, is love, ahava. So Rav Ginsburg says an amazing thing, that the root for the word love, aleph, hey, bet, in its different forms, past, future, masculine, feminine, appears exactly 42 times in the Chumash. So what is that telling us? It's telling us, just like Elazar ben Arach said, the whole point is to have a good heart. The whole point of the 2,336 verse is to teach us we're on a journey to the heart of wisdom, or to the wisdom of the heart. And so the 42 journeys in the desert correspond to the 42 times that the root ahava is mentioned. So Rav Ginsburg puts it together like 1 and 1 equals 2, and just says that from this we can learn that because God was with us during all of these journeys, just like God is with us in our individual journeys. So all of the journeys can be interpreted as journeys of love, of expressing our love in the world and being connected to God's love of us. So again, this is a very, very beautiful idea. And we're going to end with one more number here that fits in. And that is we all come from Avram Avinu. Like we learned in Parshat Matot, the idea of soul roots. Well, we're coming from Avram. And so one of the verses in the prophets, God is talking about Avram. The prophet is quoting God. And God says, Zera Avraham Oavi, the seed of Avraham who loved me. In other words, God is saying, I love the Jewish people. I am connected to the Jewish people because of Avraham. Because Avraham loved me and I loved him. That is the covenant between us and God. So the numerical value of Zera Avraham Oavi equals 543. What's the significance of that? The name of God that's mentioned only one time in the entire Tanakh, Ekia Asher Ekia, I will be that I will be, equals exactly 543. Equals the same verse, Zera Avraham Oavi, the seed of Avram who loved me. So just one step deeper, when you look at the words, Eheyeh, I will be, Asher, Eheyeh. Eheyeh equals 21. But it's doubled. I will be that I will be. So 21 and 21 equals 42. So again, we have that these journeys, and here God is revealing this name to Moshe to teach Moshe about his own potential. That each person who's on these 42 journeys, it's a journey of discovery. It's a journey of bringing out our deepest potential, becoming who we can become. I will be that I will be. And so that's what these journeys are. And as we learn, I will be, at the end of the day, the best way we can fill in the blank, I will be on a journey to the wisdom of the heart. And so we should, I see Nachum is reminding us that 21 squared equals emet. So everything we're saying here is emet, and applies to each and every one of us. So I know this class had many, many different numbers, but the connections are just so awesome. Anyone who wants to review, it's on page 461 in Fruits of the Orchard. And I left out one, which is also just amazing. I just want to go back, is we were talking about 32 times 73 equals the gematria of this verse, heart and wisdom. And we saw the connection with Sefer Yetzirah, with 32 wondrous pathways of wisdom. God created the world, heart and wisdom. And we saw that the triangle of the first verse of the Torah, 2007 equals the triangle of 73, which is wisdom. But there's one other connection that's just amazing. If you take the word Bereshit and you expand it, the Arizal did this all the time to reveal deeper meanings in the Torah. It's like putting something under a microscope. Without the microscope, we can see whatever we're looking at. You put it under a microscope, and all of a sudden, it's like, whoa, look what's revealed here. So if you take the word Bereshit and you spell it letter by letter, but you add a letter each time, bet plus bet resh plus bet resh aleph plus bet resh aleph shin plus bet resh aleph shin yud plus bet resh aleph yud bet resh aleph shin yud tav equals 2,701. The same gematria as, 2,336 equals the same as this verse that we've been analyzing this whole time. All of this was an analysis of this one verse that we were looking at, trying to get deeper in. So when you spell Bereshit, it equals this verse, which equals heart times wisdom. That is the point of Bereshit. That's the point of creation, that we should come to be in the image of God. And the best way to express the image of God in this world, like Rabbi Elazar ben Arach said, is with a lev tov. We should all merit to be on a journey to the wisdom of the heart.